Friendship. It's one of the most sacred bonds we choose for ourselves. We don't get to pick the family we're born into, but we do get to choose the people we let into our hearts, the people who become our chosen family. These are the friends who celebrate life's biggest moments with us: weddings, birthdays, holidays, and the birth of our children. The ones who see us at our best and hold us accountable at our worst. There's a deep level of trust that lives inside these friendships, and a trust that can feel unshakable. After all, these are the people who are supposed to protect us, grow with us, love us. The people we believe will always have our backs. But what happens when that trust is shattered? Not by a stranger, not by a distant acquaintance, not even by a romantic partner, but by the one person you never saw coming, your best friend. This isn't just a story about betrayal. It's about the ultimate betrayal, the kind that steals not just your trust, but your life. We like to believe we can read people, that we can spot good people when we see them, that our instincts will protect us from those who mean us harm, that we have good judgment with those whom we decide to get close to. But the truth is, sometimes the danger isn't outside your circle. Sometimes it's sitting right beside you. Today we're going behind the headlines of a case of a young Georgia woman named Shamira Fletcher. She had a bright future ahead of her and was surrounded by people who she trusted. But what she didn't know was that it would be someone close to her that would take her life. Her own best friend. Or someone whom she used to consider to be her best friend. This case shows us that no matter how much we think we really know someone, we honestly never do. People wear masks, hide their own demons, even those who we think would never harm us in any way. This is the story of Shamira Fletcher and her best friend who took literally everything from her. Shamira Fletcher, or nicknamed Mimi as everyone lovingly called her, was born on January 24, 1988 to her parents, Teresa Ann Fletcher and Herbert Wendell Fletcher Jr. She grew up in Fayetteville, Georgia, where she quickly became the kind of person everyone remembered and someone everyone liked. Mimi was the student who not only made the honor roll, but lit up every hallway she walked down. She was incredibly bright, smart, and passionate about her education, and even ended up graduating with honors from Fayette County High School. But she didn't stop there. She kept pushing herself, attending Georgia State University, where she continued to shine academically, professionally, and personally. Mimi wasn't just smart, she was a leader. She was a proud member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, Eta Mu chapter, joining in 2008 and quickly rising to become chapter president. That alone tells you so much about who she was: focused, driven, a leader, and a force to be reckoned with. But beyond all the accolades, Mimi had a way of making people feel seen. She had this unforgettable smile, the kind that drew you in and made you feel safe. Her energy was contagious. People described her as fun, loving, goofy in the best way, and the kind of friend who'd show up for you without you even having to ask. She was affectionately called the perfect candidate because she truly embodied grace, leadership, and heart. She was the dependable one. The friend who stayed late to help you study, the one who made you laugh until your stomach hurt, the one who always put others first. She carried herself with dignity and warmth, and she left an impression on everyone she crossed paths with. And that's what makes this story so gut-wrenching. Mimi wasn't just a victim, she was someone whose kindness ran deep, maybe too deep for a world that doesn't always deserve people like her. She believed in people, she saw the best in them, even when they didn't always earn or deserve that trust. We're often taught to look for red flags in romantic relationships, in partners who might control, manipulate, or harm us. But what we don't talk about nearly enough is how those same toxic patterns can also live inside friendships as well. Because friendships can be just as powerful, just as intimate, and tragically, just as dangerous. Toxic friendships can isolate you, just as much as romantic relationships can. They can chip away at your confidence, drain your energy, and sometimes they can cost you everything. We don't expect the people we call our best friends to betray us. We don't imagine that the people we let into our circle, the ones we trust the most, could ever become the ones who hurt us. Or at least, we like to think we have a good judge of character. But Mimi's story painfully reminds us that not every friendship is safe, that sometimes danger wears the face of someone you once laughed with, even someone you once shared your home and daily life with. And in this case, it cost a bright, brilliant young woman her life. It was Mimi's kindness, the same kindness that drew people in, that would ultimately lead to her untimely death at the hands of someone she called her sister. Someone who she considered to be like family. In March 2022, 34-year-old Mimi was living in a townhouse in Atlanta's Sono neighborhood with her best friend, her sister, and roommate, 37-year-old Okisha Range, who went by the nickname Mo. On the surface, their lives looked like the picture of carefree adulthood. Two young women in their late 30s, no kids, living together in the big city, enjoying their freedom, sharing laughter, and building memories. But beneath that picture-perfect surface, cracks were forming. According to those who knew them both, their friendship wasn't nearly as balanced as it appeared. What looked like closeness and unwavering love and trust from the outside was, in reality, something darker, something controlling. A woman named Antoinette Degree, who had lived with both Mimi and Mo for nearly 10 months, would later testify in court what she saw behind closed doors. And according to her, she saw the red flags very early on in Mimi and Mo's friendship. Antoinette described Mo as being very controlling, saying she held an iron grip on her and Mimi's relationship. Mo, at least according to their former roommate, would often fake or exaggerate illnesses, demanding constant attention from Mimi and subtly pulling her away from her other friends, isolating Mimi entirely. This former roommate said Mo would use these so-called fake illnesses of hers to manipulate Mimi. Antoinette recalled how Mo's behavior would often sometimes shift whenever Mimi had company around, how she'd act out, drawing the focus back to herself, as if Mimi wasn't allowed to belong to anyone else.
I wanted justice for Mimi because during the time that I was in her space, I didn't feel like she was being treated fair in the friendship.
Was it controlling?
Very controlling.
Antoinette also revealed something telling. Mo didn't contribute financially to the townhome both women shared. She didn't pay rent, she didn't buy groceries, and she didn't even have a steady income. Mo was also unemployed by the time her and Mimi's friendship would reach its breaking point. Mimi was carrying the weight of their shared life, emotionally, financially, and socially, all while believing she was helping someone she loved, someone whom she trusted with everyone. And for a long time, she probably believed that was enough. Mimi was kind-hearted and loyal, maybe even a little naive to just how much she was giving without receiving anything in return. But eventually, something shifted. Friends with Mimi started to recognize the imbalance in her friendship with Mo, noticing that she was contributing nearly everything to their friendship, whereas Mo wasn't. So that's when friends say Mimi began setting boundaries, started pulling back, and finally started to see Mo for who she really was, a freeloader, someone who was just using her and taking advantage of her kindness. But that shift didn't go unnoticed. Police believe Mo became increasingly obsessed with Mimi, growing possessive and desperate as she realized her best friend was slipping away. Just like in many abusive romantic relationships, Mo reportedly tried to isolate Mimi from her other friends and family, a classic red flag of coercive control, but one that we talk about far less when it happens in friendships. The two women had lived together for several years, and during that time, Mo's control had crept in slowly, almost invisibly, the way toxic relationships often do. It didn't happen overnight, but slowly and slowly as the women's lives became deeply intertwined. What began as a close bond turned into dependency. What looked like loyalty became control, ending in the ultimate betrayal. Authorities believe things came to a head in early March 2022. Mimi had planned a trip, something she had apparently put off in the past because of Mo, but this time it was different. This time, Mimi was choosing herself, and police say for Mo, that was the breaking point. What should have been an exciting trip for Mimi would instead set off a deadly chain of events, one that would end with her best friend, her person she trusted most, taking her life. Most of us have argued with a close friend a time or two. Fights happen, voices are raised, harsh words are exchanged, and usually, when the dust settles, apologies follow. But on March 2nd, 2022, an argument between these so-called best friends, Okisha Mo Range and Shamira Mimi Fletcher, didn't end with apologies. It ended in tragedy. That night, police were called to the women's shared townhouse, and when officers arrived, they found 34-year-old Mimi unresponsive. Paramedics rushed in, but it was too late. Shamira Mimi Fletcher was pronounced dead at the scene. When investigators initially questioned Mo, her story was unsettling, to say at the very least. She told police that the two had been play fighting when tragedy struck, painting it as just some normal roughhousing between friends. She admitted to kicking Mimi, but claimed Mimi was still alive and talking afterward. But the Fulton County Medical Examiner's Office would later confirm what detectives suspected almost immediately. Mimi hadn't just fallen or collapsed during a fight. Her autopsy had confirmed that she had been manually strangled, which was her official cause of death. Her body showed bruises and contusions from head to toe. This wasn't a minor scuffle, this was a brutal attack. And when Mo was asked about these injuries that Mimi had sustained, police claimed that Mo didn't or wouldn't explain the strangulation or the extensive injuries that covered Mimi's body. So while Mo claimed the two had simply been play fighting, roughhousing between friends, prosecutors painted a very different picture of what happened that night.
She beat her where she had contusions all over her body from her head to her feet, and then after that, she strangled her to death.
Detectives believed they had enough evidence to make an arrest. Just 6 days later, on March 8, 2022, the Atlanta Police Department's homicide unit arrested 37-year-old Okisha Range and charged her with felony murder and aggravated assault in connection with her best friend's death. But what happened during Mo's interrogation added another disturbing layer. According to police reports, while being questioned, Mo suddenly began acting as if she was having seizures, behavior eerily similar to what her former roommate would later testify about. How Mo would fake illnesses to control or elicit sympathy from Mimi. However, her defense team pushed back, insisting that Mo suffered from genuine medical issues and that she was innocent of all charges. According to my client, she did not have any issues with her going on a trip. Defense attorney Anton Rowe said, Miss Range continues to maintain her innocence of all charges and allegations. But prosecutors and the evidence told a different story. This wasn't a playful scuffle between friends that went too far. It was a violent, one-sided attack, and in the end, it cost Mimi Fletcher her life. The question that lingered long after Mimi's death, the one that kept everyone asking and continues to wonder to this day, was why? What could have possibly caused two best friends, two women who called each other sisters, to fight so intensely that one of them ended up dead? Mo claimed it was play fighting, an ordinary scuffle that spun out of control, but for many who knew them, and for those following the case online, that explanation didn't sit right. People began to wonder, what really happened inside that townhouse on March 2, 2022? How does something between best friends escalate to violence, and then to murder? And as details of their friendship slowly came to light, so did the theories. Some believe their relationship might have blurred emotional lines. Was Mo secretly in love with Mimi? Was this a case of unrequited feelings that boiled over? This case has all of the hallmarks of a domestic violence case: control, isolation, emotional manipulation, only this wasn't a romantic partner. This was a friend, at least that we know of. But this case does remind us that toxic dynamics in relationships don't necessarily have to be romantic to be dangerous. Platonic relationships can be just as toxic or manipulative, or even as deadly as romantic relationships. So while many believe the two women may have been romantically involved with one another, many others didn't buy into the romantic theory at all. They pointed to something more familiar: jealousy, envy. Mimi was beautiful, accomplished, ambitious, and driven. She was building her life and supporting herself, and from what it sounds like, at times she was supporting Mo too. Was Mo envious of everything Mimi had and represented? Did years of resentment simmer beneath the surface, finally boiling over that night? And then there's another theory, one that's just as unsettling. Some believe Mo snapped when she saw Mimi finally pulling away, setting boundaries, and taking back her independence. If Mo was financially and emotionally dependent on Mimi, losing her could have meant losing everything, losing her life as she knew it. Maybe in that moment, Mo realized her meal ticket, her safety net, was slipping through her fingers. Whatever the true motive was, we may never fully know, but the trial did give us glimpses, through the testimony of Mimi's former roommate, of a friendship that had grown toxic long before that night. Envy, control, obsession, jealousy. These are words we often associate with romantic partners, but they can just as easily live inside friendships too, and when those red flags are ignored, they can turn deadly. This wasn't just another argument between friends. This was the final breaking point in a relationship that had been crumbling for a long time. Like something out of a true crime docuseries or Netflix Worst Roommate Ever, only this time, it was real. And it cost a young woman, someone kind, driven, and full of life, everything. As we know, Okisha Mo Range was taken into custody in March 2022, just days after Mimi's death, and then things went quiet for a while. For more than 3 years, the case moved through the court system, largely out of the public eye. While reporters covered the initial arrest, very little information was ever shared about the pretrial process. No detailed reporting on court hearings, no confirmed jury selection dates, and no published timeline of motions or delays. It's not uncommon for homicide cases to take years to reach trial, especially when they involve complex evidence and emotional testimony. But in this case, that gap in the public record left many in the community wondering what was happening behind the scenes as the legal process slowly unfolded. What we do know is that the case eventually made its way to trial in mid-2025. What happened during those 3 years, the motions, the hearings, the legal maneuvering, remains mostly behind closed doors, undocumented in the public sphere. When the case finally made it to trial more than 3 years after Mimi's death, the courtroom became the place where everything that had been whispered about their friendship finally came out into the open. Prosecutors argued that Okisha Mo Range had a stranglehold on Mimi Fletcher's life, emotionally, financially, and socially. They said Mo had grown dependent on Mimi, freeloading off her generosity, and when that dependency was threatened, it exploded into deadly violence. Then came one of the most powerful moments of the trial, the testimony of Antoinette Degree, the former roommate who had lived with both women for nearly a year. Antoinette told jurors about the red flags she saw in the women's friendship long before that deadly night. How Mo was controlling, how she manipulated Mimi, and how she often faked illnesses to keep Mimi's attention and sympathy. Her account matched what investigators claimed they witnessed during Mo's interrogation. Mo appeared to fake seizures while being questioned. Prosecutors used this to underscore a pattern of manipulation. Mo's defense pushed back, insisting she had legitimate medical conditions and was not pretending. Fulton County District Attorney Fannie Willis summed up the prosecution's argument bluntly.
We have someone that becomes literally obsessed with a friend, and when that friend started pulling back, the only way that they could control them was to take their life.
The defense tried to minimize the claims of control. Attorney Anton Rowe argued that Mo may have relied on Mimi, but that didn't mean she isolated or controlled her. They maintained Mo's innocence and argued that the state's case was built on assumption, not proof of intent.
Okisha Range didn't buy herself food, she didn't pay any rent, she didn't have a source of income.
Being a freeloader does not equal a murderer.
But ultimately, the jury didn't see it that way. Okisha Mo Range was found guilty of the murder of Shamira Mimi Fletcher and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Following the verdict, attorney Anton Rowe announced that Mo filed a motion for a new trial, signaling that their legal fight isn't over yet. However, despite Okisha Range's motion for a new trial, today she is currently serving her sentence at McRae Women's Facility in McRae, Helena, Georgia, where she will likely remain for the rest of her life. Shamira Mimi Fletcher was more than just a headline. She was a daughter, a friend, a woman with dreams, laughter, and a kindness that made people feel safe around her. She opened her home and her heart to someone she considered to be like family, and she likely never imagined that trust would end in betrayal. If we learn anything from this case, it's that toxic relationships don't always wear the face of a romantic partner. Sometimes they come in the form of a friend, someone who chips away at boundaries until love and loyalty are turned into control and obsession. Mimi's story isn't just about what happened to her in those final moments. It's about everything she gave before them. Her generosity, her trust, her light, and how tragically it was stolen from the world far too soon by someone whom she saw as a sister. Friendships are supposed to be safe havens, a bond between two people built on laughter, trust, and shared moments. But when that bond becomes unbalanced, when one person gives everything and the other takes, that safe place can quietly turn dangerous. And as we've seen in this case, it can be deadly as well. Mimi believed in loyalty. She believed in love that felt like family. But what she didn't see, or perhaps didn't want to see, were the red flags slowly wrapping around her life. In the end, those warning signs became the cracks that led to something unthinkable. This wasn't a story about strangers. This was a story about two best friends, and how obsession, envy, jealousy, and control turned something sacred into something deadly. Mimi's life was a reflection of who she was. Warm, kind, and full of light. She gave her heart freely to the people she loved, and for a long time, she believed that love was returned. But love, when twisted by control and jealousy, can turn into something dangerous. Not every toxic relationship ends with bruises you can see. Sometimes it hides behind smiles, shared homes, and inside jokes between best friends. Mimi deserved better. She deserved to grow old, to keep laughing, to keep living the life she built. If there's one lesson we can take from Mimi's story, it's that red flags aren't limited to romantic relationships. The same warning signs we often associate with abusive partners, isolation, control, behavior, jealousy, manipulation, can exist in friends and even family relationships. These bonds, even when they feel safe or loving, can become toxic if boundaries are not respected. I hope this case is a lesson for everyone to trust their own instincts, recognize the warning signs, and set boundaries, even with those we call our closest friends or family. Toxicity doesn't always wear a familiar face, and sometimes the people we let closest into our lives can pose the greatest danger. This case may make us rethink the friendships we keep, and it shows that toxic friendships can be just as dangerous and even deadly as any other type of relationship. This has been Joshua John with Behind the Headlines, and until next time, stay safe.